Ajaxing as Lucio is probably one of the most heartbreaking things you can feel, but why does it always happen? Dying mid-beat, or Ajaxing, is part to every Lucio player out there. And if you didn't know, the term originated from a player called Ajax who was so well known for always doing this. But how do they happen in the first place, and how do you minimize your Ajax chances? Well, get ready for one of the most insane Ajaxes you'll ever see, how some of the best players in the world still manage to Ajax, and the secret to making sure that you don't Ajax yourself. Now, this video is going to be structured slightly differently to my usual stuff. It's going to be split into 3 different Ajax levels, but each level is going to represent a different Lucio player, and each level is going to get more and more egregious. I'm going to slightly cheat and use 2 players for the first level, Vega and Lep, who are both the top 2 North American Lucio players. We'll be going through Lep first, who on Rialto had a pretty bad Ajax as you can see. Now it's important to set the foundation for Ajaxing here. I've made this graphic plotting the value that you can get with Lucio beat on the x-axis and the likelihood of Ajaxing on the y-axis, splitting the graph into 4 main areas, having a high Ajax chance but a low value beat, a high Ajax chance but a high value beat in the top right, a low Ajax chance and a high value beat in the bottom right, and finally, a low Ajax chance and a low value beat in the bottom left. And generally, there's a linear relationship that the higher value beat you can get, the more likely you are to Ajax. The reason I've plotted it out like this is because most Ajaxes that you'll see in this video, if they actually landed, they'd be good high value beats, and we wouldn't really be having an issue with them. In other words, the misconception is that just because a player Ajaxes automatically means the beat is bad. So what should determine whether a beat's bad? Well, that's the Ajax likelihood, or in other words, how much visual aggro are you taking before you beat? I used a similar idea in my number 1 Doomfist video, where a good power block is determined by how many dangerous enemies are staring at you, or the visual aggro you're taking. And in this case, what makes this beat bad is that Lep's taking too much visual aggro. A high charge Zarya mowing you down is scary as fuck. Let's not be into that. Using this metric of visual aggro, we can still say that if Lep had landed the beat, it still wouldn't have been a good thing to do in principle. Comparatively, Natsuki's beat here is a lot more reasonable because the only visual aggro he's taking is maybe from the Kiriko, if that. And this should also dispel the myth that using beat second automatically means you get the better beats. No, it doesn't. As long as you get value for that split second where you've got beat and they don't, it's completely fine. Regardless, keep Natsuki in mind for later because he does make a play that's not so good, we'll say. And this visual aggro idea certainly carries on to Vega. With this beat on King's Row, he still gets it off, but let's slow it down. Firstly, both the D.Va and Freya are looking directly at Vega. The D.Va can, and is, bursting them down with all of their cooldowns, while the Freya lands a direct hit. As a result, Vega goes down to 37 HP before the beat goes off, and honestly, Sugar Free could have been the finishing blow. But hopefully this shows that just because a beat lands, doesn't mean it was necessarily good off principle. Speaking of Vega, he's known for having his fair share of Ajaxes. But actually, throughout the entirety of playoffs, he didn't Ajax once. But how? Well, I'd say Vega is a lot better at double checking his surroundings before beating. In this example, he's got a wide vision of the entire enemy team, meaning that he can quickly just look around, assess how much aggro he's taking, and see if it's safe to beat. His second beat is another great example of this. He's jiggle peeking around the corner to assess the risk of beating, and once he realizes it's safe, he beats. And lastly, while he is taking aggression from the enemy tracer here, he perfectly syncs his beat with when the enemy tracer needs to reload, meaning that once again, he's actually not taking that much aggro. There's also a half-second grace period where you can beat before turning a corner, then turn it, and your teammates will still get it. You can abuse that like how Admiral does here to beat before corner, which obviously makes it a lot more safer. But who gives a shit? We all want to see more Ajaxes, and who better to deliver than the one and only Violet? In this match against Alcadia, Violet Ajaxes not only once, but twice, showing once again how powerful Saudi money is to keep someone playing the game.
You know, it's not about money. All this stuff is, you know, it's just a blessing to be doing this stuff, right?
Violet's first Ajax happens when Alcatia TP their Sojin Sim to high ground and Lubda pops the overclock, coupled with Ziad running in with both his Vortex and his Ram form, and this is obviously way too much aggro for Violet to handle. In fairness, from Violet's POV, he thinks he's safe because he's behind cover, which is where the Symmetra makes things more complicated with the TP. But I'm not letting Violet get off the hook with this one. If you're planning to beat for the overclock, why not just play to the back cover, which you were already playing by? You could even stay by the coast side or by the left side mini. It seems that Violet gets baited to walk forward for absolutely no reason. I assume it's just because he sees his Doom Venture using cooldowns, but they're just trying to bait the TP, not actually engage. His second Ajax is sadly not much better. In fairness, he does try and create distance and beat around the corner, but the issue is that he's already so low that it doesn't really matter. And when you're playing into probably the best diva in Europe, you need to be more disciplined. Editing Kajor coming in here, it's worth briefly mentioning Violet's infamous Ajax in front of a back window, which costed his team 80 grand. Probably just a miscommunication on what Violet wanted to do, but worth bringing up because if I didn't mention this, one of you in the comments probably would have. Anyways, back to the video. But this all begs the question, what actually makes a good beat in the first place? Well, I've got another graph for you with time on the x-axis and beat value on the y-axis. And the point of this is to show that because a ton of your ult value is front-loaded, the situation to a beat is good is to enable high amounts of burst aggression or to disable it. Of course, this isn't the only factor. Violet's first beat was to disable the aggression from the overclock, and yet it wasn't a good beat due to the visual aggro. But a lot of beats that I've been seeing are used to enable your teammates to be aggressive, going back to Vega's beat past the Tracer, and this just allows him and his teammates to explode the Ramatra. Obviously, Admiral's matching beat is to disable this aggression too, keeping things all balanced. And frankly, this is how most of the beats on this map went down. But for the moment you've all been waiting for, drum roll please, the Natsuki beats. In case you don't know, last weekend, Sakura played against SSG in the lower brackets, with the winner of this match making Stockholm and the loser missing out. Natsuki, being on Team Sakura, took the first map in a surprising upset, but things started to get slowly worse later in the series. With King's Row being in potential final fight territory, Natsuki makes a play that to everyone looked batshit insane.
Can't do it, Natsuki dies with the beat, crucially. B for Natsuki! He knows there's another fight, right? He knows there's another fight!
In fact, the backlash was so bad that Natsuki made a 2.5 minute response video, which I'll link below in case you want to see. So, was there sound reasoning that makes this Ajax good?
No! No! No!
Well, the idea behind it was that if Natsuki beats on points, his Kiriko can TP to him, which could buy his team just enough time to come back from spawn and clutch out the points. However, there's a few issues. The first and most obvious being visual aggro. Swinging all the way into 3 people, let alone a charged Zarya and Tracer, is not gonna end well. And even Natsuki acknowledges that he could have beaten by the corner instead of on the points. Not to mention, even if the beat landed, Hawks got grab anyways, so it would have barely mattered. What I really want to get into here though is the psychology behind the Ajax. People were saying to me that there's literally zero logic behind the beat, which in fairness, it is a bad beat. But think about it. You're in the heat of the moment with a ticket to the World Finals on the line and about a few seconds to make the right choice. There's so many factors to consider that I'm gonna have a counter in the bottom right. Firstly, you need to consider the placement of your beat around the corner, alongside whether your Kiriko can even TP to you, how far your teammates are away, how many enemies you'd be beating into, who those enemies actually are, the ult economy that comes at play, and the consequences of letting the bot go to 3rd points and not beating, where you'd still probably lose anyways. And considering all those factors, and probably more that I left out, in the space of about a few seconds, in the pressure of the moment, is basically impossible. In my cast video, I mentioned how players under pressure either go for rushed hero plays or get scared to do anything, and it's clear to me that this is a rushed hero play. It's not nerves, it's hyper focus. it's forgetting to consider factors in the moment and trying your best to be him. Low-key reminds me of that Tyler the Creator ad about why would you ever risk it.
Why risk it?
Not to mention, main support is the least sexy role in the game. You don't get praised for making good plays, you get scrutinized for making one bad play, and you don't get MVPs or player of the games, unlike most DPS players. So, with all that being said, what would you do? As always, if you enjoyed, subscribe and click the video on screen too. Until next time.